Welcome to Human School. I'm your host, Dr. Patil Armenian. After 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, and 2 years of fellowship, I thought I was done. I did my time, got my degrees, and now I was just gonna live life. Well, think again. Some of my greatest schooling has come after my formal education was complete, and it keeps on coming. Join me at Human School, where we can learn together. I'm an emergency physician and medical toxicologist working at a large teaching hospital in California. I'm also a mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend. Whether you work in healthcare or not, you too lead a busy life. Together, let's work on how we can thrive in all of our real-world roles. On this podcast, we'll dig deep into what it means to constantly learn and evolve, to be human. Every other week, I'll share some of my personal stories, interview inspiring people, and offer tools to help you learn more about yourself. Being on the front lines in the ER, you learn a lot about life and death. And though my philosophies were born in a busy emergency room, they can apply to anyone trying to live a joyful life here on Earth. Please listen, share, and subscribe to this podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at Human School Podcast, and feel free to let me know what topics or guests you want to hear about. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate and review it. Today's episode is another techniques episode where we talk about tools and techniques that can help us in our daily lives. I had the privilege of speaking with Leslie Galbraith, an astrologer and just a ray of light of a human being. We delve into general concepts about astrology and why it can be used as a tool to understand yourself and life cycles better. She offers readings through her website, ourcosmicday.com, which I've linked in the show notes. However, a great way to dive in is also just to look up your natal or birth chart for free on cafeastrology.com, astro.com, or other websites that are out there. This is your astrology chart from the moment you were born, so it relies on the exact time and place of your birth. If you don't know your exact birth time, you could still get valuable information about your astrological chart, so don't let that deter you. One more word of advice: if you ever get a reading or session of any type, try to record it so that you can go back to it over and over again. You'll learn new things each time you listen or read the transcript. Now let's get into our chat with Leslie Galbraith. Hi everyone, and welcome to Human School. Today I have on with me a very special guest, my favorite astrologer ever, Leslie Galbraith. Welcome, Leslie.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Now I'm sure everybody is wondering, what do you mean you have an astrologer on? Well, I've personally had many sessions with Leslie, and I can't tell you how helpful it's been for me to organize my mind and get better understanding of what's going on. Leslie, I thought you could explain to us, what is astrology even in the first place?
Yes, I'd love to. So, the way to think about astrology as more of a language, and it's like a language of energy. So, when we think about languages, we communicate with different languages: English, Chinese, Spanish, and they're different systems to learn a way of communication. And even if we go back, they communicated with visual, imagery, and things like that. So, astrology, how I look at it, is a language of energy, and it's used to speak the language of what are we all experiencing collectively at any given moment on Earth. And that has to do with where are all the planets and luminaries in the sky. I look at it as the sacred art, and it has a lot of geometry in it. So there is some parts that are scientific, but what we really do is decode information and observe information, and then decode that information and observe more information. Astrology is a system that's been built over hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's by looking at the planetary alignments, observing where they are, and then correlating it to what's happening here on Earth. So it's really a language of the sky. And so when we look at a birth chart, what does that mean? A birth chart is calculated the time you were born, the date, the location, what was happening in the sky at that moment. So every moment we are new. We have choices every moment. What are we choosing to believe, to think, to do, to act? Every moment is a new energy. And I love that because it's always changing. And we can change very quickly. We can change different ways of thinking and behaviors and energy. So each moment has its own birth. That's how I think about when we're moving through our existence here. We're moving through these cycles of being, these cycles of lives, these cycles of seasons. And astrology is really a beautiful tool and a guide to help us decode that energy. So, our birth chart is when we look at the sky from Earth and see where were all the planets at the moment we were born, and then what part of this energetic field was activated. So I look at our birth chart as really carrying our sacred codes. Each person is their own unique individual self, right? And it's like energy, like you're never going to be the same again. You
Yeah.
know, there's just us. So astrology is looking at that alignment of the energetic field, studying those patterns, and then correlating it into how does it show up in our patterning, our way of being. So it's really a powerful, powerful tool for self-awareness.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you describe it as this like minute by minute, point by point in time changes that occur. Because I think the general thought about astrology is well, you have these 12 signs depending on the day you were born. And how can one out of 12 people on the planet be experiencing the same thing or be the same person? And it's like, well, of course, it's more detailed than that. And so you're talking about looking at the exact time, exact place you were born to get this more detailed picture.
Exactly. And so our birth chart has its moment. We take our first breath, right? And so from that moment, we are on the journey of life. And as we go on our journey, we know that we have different moments when we go through some incredible, amazing experiences. We go through moments of devastation or loss. We go through moments of our cycles of just joy. We all experience sometimes, I think at every point in someone's life, more of a dark night of the soul, a deeper inner reflection of ourselves. So as we go on life's journey, we know that we are what I say in the school of life. You know, like we are here as souls, conscious awareness. And another thing, how I look at astrology is the person that you came here to be is exactly who you are, right? So you came here to be you, nobody else. And even though there are common threads, being human, likes, dislikes, things people have preferences, energies, characteristics, qualities. You are really a gift, and we all are a gift to everyone else by being who we really are. So, looking at the chart, our birth chart, as our soul's plan for who we're going to be in this life. And I feel like whatever you kind of have as a belief system, I just call it God, love, source, because we all have different ways that we connect to things outside of ourselves. I look at this life as a co creation of me with that energy because I'm exactly who I'm here to be. I'm here to be Leslie. And this is the gifts that I bring and I share in this life. And the school of life is about learning and growing and really a journey of expanding our awareness and consciousness of who we are. So the chart is a guide for that in a way. And it is way more complex and layered than what we just see if we look at us as a Scorpio or a Pisces or a sun sign and my moon is this and my moon is that. Yes, those ways or those ways of looking at astrology does have its certain classification, but the chart is its own energy, just like you know, like you're your own energy. Well, that's reflected in the chart. So when you have two souls born at the exact same time, in the same place, in the same hospital, they have the same chart. Right? So let's say you're in the maternity ward and there's all those babies on every given moment, every given day, all in
Yeah,
a group. And that's how many, okay, those souls are all born. They all have the same chart, all those souls, every moment, you know, that this is going down. Souls come in, but each person is a unique expression and meets the energy in their own way, which is so beautiful about being on this earth with all these souls, right? Like we're all here together and we're all a unique manifestation of some kind of energy. So
exactly.
the soul you'll have people who have the same chart, but their soul has been on a journey before, you know, coming into this expression and will continue on in a journey. So, how they express themselves is about your unique choices. And really, what it also is about being responsible for that what you've chosen to be.
I mean, that's such a good way to put it because I feel like the more I learned about my chart, like I didn't learn anything new. It was more like, oh, this is confirmation of things I've known about myself that I know that, you know, these are my skills or this is what I need to do next. And it's funny because I've had a lot of friends and family at this point get readings from you. And that's what everybody says. You just learn things that you already know to be true. You just needed some confirmation of it. And it is all there and it's you, and we're all individuals. One other thing I'll add is that I like that you're not saying, oh, this is something set in stone or your future is written in here. It's like, no, we're all individual beings with the power of choice and to do, you know, what we want with information. And so I like that that's not really where your emphasis is.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, the choices what we make, you know, I was saying that we're in the school, I say our soul has a syllabus. You know, like, so you go in class, you have an outline, right? You're going to learn something, you have an outline. So I look at our soul as having a syllabus, which in that outline are the things that we are going to share because we are so gifted with them. We brought into this life these beautiful gifts, and the ways that this shows up and gets expressed are limitless. Some people come in and, you know, they're really just incredible musicians. And their gift, I call them, they're sound healers. They're here to help people move into different states of being through their sound, with their voice, with an instrument. We have so many gifted people. You've inspired me so much when I think about, like, when I talk to you and your work and what you do and hearing about your stories. Oh my goodness, like the gifts that you share, and we go deep. We've got into our in our sessions deep about some of these things that I'm just like, wow, right? So there's so many different ways. We can be an amazing teacher. We can be someone who just really knows like how to cook and how to like share. Some people who are so gifted by smiling at other people. There's so many ways that we share ourselves with this world and beautiful, beautiful expressions. Then our soul also has work. And I think we all know, and what you're saying about this confirmation, we do have a deep connection to who we are, right? So we have this understanding. And when we think about some of the more difficult things in our life, the challenges, the behaviors, the patterns that we carry that are just a little bit tough, those are the things exactly what we want to grow and evolve and shift into new ways in being. So, our chart, we can read all of those gifts and patterns, but we can also understand through looking at, this beautiful mirror of the sky and mirroring it of our soul, what we're here to work on. And that's when we start to look at all of the planets as different archetypal energies of the layers of our psyche. So, what does that mean? Well, when we look at the planets in astrology, all of the planets have certain archetypal meaning. And that's a meaning that we connect to universally, right? So a lot of this is based also, on Carl Jung, his understanding of archetypes. So when we see something like the sun is the life force, it's our will, it's our drive, but the sun is also representative of our ego, yes. And in astrology, we look at it as the archetype of father. Now, this is not, this is about an energy that runs through what does a father symbolize? What does that energy represent? So, when we look at the moon, for example, the moon, we look at it as our emotions, our sensitivity, our unconscious energies, how we nurture our sense of nature towards other people. The moon is also our archetypal representation of mother. So, what's so cool about astrology is that in this chart, by observing and decoding and correlating information, you can get at a pretty complex understanding, layers of different parts of what a soul is here to do, here to share, and what their work is. What's you're here to grow through? What are some of the challenges you're healing and moving through in this life?
Yeah, because we all have things we need to do, challenges we need to work through. Nobody's getting a free ticket, free ride on this planet. So we got stuff to do.
And that's a common thing all of us have. We all have stuff, and it's all different, and we're all okay here together working on it. When we really become more aware of it, this is when we tend to kind of confront some of these lessons and learnings in ourselves. So, just to give you an example of something, when we look at the chart, there's the planets, they represent something. And then the zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac, they are different qualities and characteristics that the energy expresses itself. So in astrology, you hear a lot of like the planet is the actor, and then almost like the sign is how is it dressed? What are they wearing? What are they like? How does it express itself? And then in the chart, we have the planets, the sign, and then the chart itself is divided into 12 sections. And these are called houses, which are areas of our life that are going to be more focused and places that we're going to have a lot of areas of life where we might have a ton of skill sets to share and to lead with, and areas of our life where we might need some more work or something that we wanted to learn more of, or a pattern of being that we wanted to heal and move through. So the chart is a synthesis of the different parts of us, how it expresses, and where in our life do we meet that energy. So some souls come in when I look at charts, and now I've been doing this for 12 years and thousands of charts, and I've taught a lot of classes. And at this point, when I look at a chart and I start to kind of synthesize the information, decode, really sit with the energy of the pattern of this and the energy of pattern of this, I don't know. And I never would predict how a person would express it or what their story is. I just have an awareness there's a pattern here, right? And so then when I'm working with clients or I get on the phone or I'm teaching and I say, let's talk about something like anger issues in your life. Some people, they might not have so much of a big story around that. My experience here is a big learning around anger and learning how to handle it and how to understand the energies that trigger anger in my life. How I was growing up, how I was exposed to a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, even some I had 3 older brothers, not nice behavior when I see how they would behave. So in my life as a soul, I'm here sharing all these things, but I know that deep down, I have some issues with how I handle anger, right? So I know that there's going to be some big work in my life where I've encountered this at a young age. I've had to move through how I handle it, how I either create boundaries around it or my behaviors around it. This is something I know that, since a pretty young age, I've been doing work around. Okay. So when I got my first astrology reading in 2009, the astrologer said, "So tell me about your anger issues."
You were like, what? How do you know?
I said, wait a second. And this is common, when I get into reading, people are just like, how do you know? Who told you? What's going on here? Like, where did this come from? Well, there's a very specific alignment in my chart. Mars squares my sun, Mars squares my moon. It's a sacred geometry, it's an alignment. And I don't want to get into too much astrology talk, but it is a pattern that when you would look at my chart, you would see it because of what was happening in the sky that day was being mirrored in the field. So I'm imprinted with that energy, but I have the power to understand, what do I do about it? Right? Like, how do I handle it? What do I do? And I like what you're saying too. It's just like we have these choices. Planets aren't doing things to us, but we are a part of a collective field where there's a lot of energies and a lot of people. It's easy to look at astrology and to think of it in a way that it is emotional weather. Every day the moon is in a sign. Today the moon is in Pisces. That's an emotional emotional energy. That's a deep reflective energy. I just went to the store and the lady in front of me was like, "Oh, I'm just feeling out of it and tired and kind of sleepy today." Like there's a pattern around Pisces, okay? And there's a story around that way of meeting life. So the moon is in the sign of that. The moon is the emotional energy. So it's in a way when we look at how we are, right? And our nature, astrology is basically like the decoding of that. So when we go deeper into awareness about things that we're working on, honestly, the majority of people that I talk to, maybe the first time, they are going through major life transformations, right? We are on our journey going to encounter some very high highs and some very low lows. We're going to go move through some really incredible things. We're going to move through some really challenging things. And often people come to astrology because there is an awareness that what they're going through is something big or profound.
So, how can astrology help for them to see that, but then also to even understand solutions or ways to cope with things better?
Yeah. When you're saying this confirmation, astrology is really a tool also for divination. And when we talk about divination, we're talking about understanding energy outside of our senses. When I connect with somebody and I look at their chart and I start to get an understanding of the things that they're good at, the patterns that they're working on, their sense of being, what I also do is I look at what cycle of life is someone going through right now. So, what do I mean by that? There's two parts of how we look at astrology in terms of what's happening. One is a life cycle, and two is a personal cycle. So when we're born, our chart is set. That little map is an outline. And then as we go through our life, just like we are a year old every year, our chart cycles through and goes through different growths and evolution in its own story. So, life cycles are ages that everyone is going to confront different growths or stories in their life at specific times. So, for example, the biggest astrology life cycle we hear about is Saturn return.
Yes.
Saturn return happens at the end of your 20s, the end of your 50s, the end of your 80s, because Saturn takes about 29 years and it stays in a sign between 2 and 3 years as it cycles and makes one completion through the zodiac. So at the end of our 20s, everyone experiences a Saturn return. Now, Saturn is the archetypal energy of discipline, hard work, the worker, the teacher, someone who's getting things done, the builder, the creator, the leader. Saturn is an archetypal energy that's represented by how we work, how we do things, and how we lead, our sense of duty, our sense of responsibility. So everyone at the end of their 20s is going to experience a Saturn return. Now, so many people get to 28, 29, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I need to move. I want to have a baby. I need to get divorced. I need to finish school. Oh my God, I want to go back to school. And really, so many things start picking up in their lives. And it feels like a lot of change, a lot of energy building towards what is going on right now. Who am I? What am I doing? What is this energy? So, this cycle, life cycle that happens at certain ages, when people come to astrology and they want to understand deeper about who they are, I love to give everybody so many compliments about their gifts. Because we hear about so much about how what, this, "Oh, this is my work. I'm having a hard time with this." So, astrology is going to reinforce so many things that you are amazing at, number 1. And everybody is genius. Everybody has amazing gifts. So people come to astrology, I think, on a deeper level. Maybe they don't wanna understand they're coming to get complimented, but I feel like their soul on some level wants to hear and remember how amazing they are. And that's part of the gift of astrology, is to really, again, share the insight and understanding of the gifts that you have. Also, people wanna understand, "What the heck is going on in my life?" Like, "I've just had this happen, now it's this, now I'm ready for a change. I'm tired of this job, I'm ready to move, I'm ready for another." And oftentimes, so many times, when we sense there's a big shift, there is some kind of cycle happening in our chart. So, why do, people come to it, or what benefit is it? It's really a way to, again, remember who we are, but then also to understand deeper of maybe where we're at right now, and then what are we headed towards? What are we now, with information that we have? What are we moving more towards in our life? So it can be very helpful to understand the cycles. So we have those life cycles, and then we have personal cycles. So just like, again, every year your birthday is on the day the sun returns to where it was when you were born. You have all these different planets moving around your chart at different speeds, and they all represent different cycles. So I think that a lot of people understand that there's such a big, again, shift for them, but it helps to put a lot of pieces of the puzzle together. And I am not really, just like you said, you were spot on. I'm not really telling someone necessarily so much new info. I do get sometimes visions and messages for people that I pull from my intuition, but what I'm really speaking to is, again, just something that they already have an understanding of, but it helps to ground that energy and helps it to be a little bit more clarity and
Mhm.
understanding.
That's really helpful. Now, let's say somebody is inspired by listening to us and they're like, I'm going to pull up my birth chart. A wheel will pop up, but then
Yeah,
usually a lot of writing and information depending on where you go. I like Cafe Astrology or Astro.com. I don't know if there's a favorite one you like,
both of
but
those are amazing. Yep.
but it's like, what would you tell somebody to look at first?
So in your chart, if you go onto astro.com, you can set up a free account and you get to put in 100 charts. So when you enter your birth info, you set up an email, you enter your birth info, the date, the time, the location, and you will see that chart. Now, when you look at it, it's very complicated in a way where so many people are just like, I don't understand even what I'm looking at. Right? It's like it's just this wheel with all these symbols
Yeah,
and
I
all these
couldn't look at it for a long time. I just had to look
lines.
at, what's written about, sun in this or, I was
Exactly.
reading the writings.
And I would start just with that, just what you said. On astro.com, there's so many resources that you can just click, and they'll give you just little insights of, okay, what is this pattern about? And then remember, when you get the information, you get to synthesize it about how it works for you, right? Because each person is a unique conscious energy, and each person has their own choices. So if somebody is interested to learn more about your chart on Astro, I would just start, just like you said, start there, start clicking on things and seeing kind of what pops up. Let's say, for example, Mercury is the planet that rules communication. It's the planet that we look at when we want to see how does someone talk? How do they think? How do they give and receive information? That's Mercury's role. So if we just look at and we start to click on, oh, my Mercury is in Pisces, well, that gives us a little bit of deeper understanding of our communication nature. Right? And so if you just start
Yeah.
clicking on some of those things and it'll start, "Oh, this makes sense. Oh, okay, I get this." If you click on Mercury in the 1st house, that's where your Mercury lives, that gives you a whole 'nother set of patterning and energies of how that expresses itself. So, someone who doesn't know a lot but they're interested, yeah, is just start going down. Cafe Astrology is a really great resource. There's another called AstroSeek, SEEK, and AstroSeek has a ton of different things to start clicking on, and a lot of these things you can just, like, look at insights of your chart if you put your info in. You can start looking at different things of understanding what the moon cycles represent, understanding what new moons are, full moons are, how you can work with that energy. So, all of these places are great places just to get started. And then if you wanna go deeper, yeah, I recommend getting a reading with an astrologer, with someone that you feel, you can just explore, and there's gonna be so many different beautiful things that come from that reading. Just like I said the first time I had my reading, the woman actually ended up becoming my teacher later after I was blown away. She said so many insightful things that I just was like, really, again, like, wow. And it wasn't that she predicted, it's not about prediction, it's not about this, it's just about connecting dots, and kind of understanding really what is, important to me in this life, what is important that I share with the world, what is important for my soul to understand and grow. Some souls come into a life and their work is so important. And a majority of their life is really just dedicated work, 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 work. And you'll see someone they'll have a strong ninth house, 10th house, 11th house. These are the houses that rule work areas in our life, or sixth house, or
Mhm.
you'll see some souls will be here and it's all about family. Some souls, it's both. It's about family and it's about work. We are all here on our own journey, right? And there's nothing, in astrology, never good or bad. It's just what is. And how do we work with it? Astrology is not about ever like a coincidence or like, "Oh, wow, that's a coincidence." It's all about energy. Like energy that goes with like energy.
Mhm.
Energy that is not in the easiest energy with the other energy, like it's always about understanding from that level, and really I feel like following and being true to your authentic self, and so when you start to look at these, when she gave me that reading and she just kind of said a few beautiful things that just kind of clicked in me, it just brought me to a deeper understanding, so I recommend people, if they are kind of interested in it and they're just like, well, I'd like to actually reach out and have a reading with somebody. It's a jumping point to understanding more. And then if you want to go something even deeper, you can go into the app like Time Passages. That's an app that I like, where you put your birth info in, and then it starts to give you different insights about what's going on in your life, your current horoscope of the planets, and it gives a little bit of description. That's one of my favorite apps for kind of following when you wanna learn more. You can follow along with Time Passages. It's
Yeah,
really
Time Passages is really detailed. I
Yeah.
had to, yeah, it's like I actually felt like I had to start studying in order to start understanding time passages. But I mean, I love it. You know, what you were mentioning your first reading, and I remember, I think with my first reading, I was in a particularly stressed out low point with work. And I was just like, what is wrong with me that I chose two medical specialties that are at the edge of life and death? Like, I couldn't have picked something, I don't know, more fun or easy or with better hours or where I'm not like up in the night and I don't know, all these things. And then I remember it was like, oh, well, I mean, look at all these placements in your chart. Of course, you were going to work at the edge of life and death.
And that's like
And
there's
it
so
helped. It helped me feel better.
and there's so many like in your chart when oh man, when we talk about your work, oh, it makes so much sense. And that's really what it does. It just makes a lot of like sense. And then in that way, there's like ease and a comfort with, yeah, this is who I am. These are the things that I'm good at. These are the things that I can do, I love to do, or I share, or this is why this is interesting to me. It's just this beautiful way of, yeah, I love that word of just confirmation of like things that we are already aware of.
I think we've talked a lot about just how people can interpret themselves and start looking at their charts, which, by the way, I know it sounds very complicated, but I would say just start pulling it up and reading little tidbits. And you're going to notice that every horoscope sign, like we said, has a house and a planet associated with it. And you're going to kind of look at all of those descriptions and just kind of get started. It's very helpful. But on the other end of things, the sky is changing constantly. And so it's constantly affecting where the whole planet is right now and what we're all going through as a collective. So, how can we use astrology on that collective frequency to see what's going on with everything at large?
Yeah, so mundane astrology is about looking at where things are, just like you said, on a collective level. And then how is that mirrored in the times? There's this amazing book, Cosmos and Psyche. It's written by this man, Richard Tarnas. It's not, I mean, it's an astrology book, but it's also not. It's a pretty big book, it's hundreds of pages. But it's so fascinating because in this book, he went through a lot of history and correlated different times when certain alignments were happening to events that were happening and being mirrored here on Earth. So when we look at mundane astrology, just what's happening now, we can also use those archetypes, those characteristics, the patterns, the energy to decode, well, how is that showing up in our world? Right? And what is that? What is mirroring in our collective psyche, our unconscious? What is going on? And right now, we're going through such a huge shift of energy. And this is something that it's gonna, in astrology, sometimes my friends, they'll be like, "When is this over? Like, when's this cycle done? And when's it gonna end?" And I said, "Well, that cycle's over, and then this next one is going here." So it's never there is no ending until there's the end. We know. We know we have the start and we have the end, right? So in between, we're gonna go through all these different cycles. So when we look at collective energy, oh, it's a big deal right now when we're looking at, well, what's going on in the sky with the planets right now. And one thing that is a big story is that we're looking at Pluto, which is the representation of power and control and transformation. That archetypal energy, Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn since about 2007 and 2008. And over this last year, earlier this year, Pluto moved into the sign of Aquarius. Now, Pluto is a cycle of 248 years. So when we go back to Pluto, at the placement it has been in the prior years, this is back to 1776, right? So we're going back to this whole cycle about looking at Pluto, this planet of power and control, and now leaving the sign of Capricorn and moving into the sign of Aquarius. This has been a huge shift in our reality, in our world, in our paradigm here on Earth. And this shift really started to become strong earlier this year, because earlier this year, Pluto left Capricorn, went into the sign of Aquarius. Then, because the planet's retrograde, Pluto moved back into Capricorn this summer. And we're going to see Pluto go to Aquarius January, I think the January 21st of next year. And then Pluto goes back into Capricorn again. And then November 19th, 2024, Pluto is going to leave Capricorn and not return there for 248 years. So looking at this as a collective, then looking at our world, we can see we're going through massive changes.
What does Capricorn and Aquarius mean? How are they different?
Capricorn is about our government, our institutions. Capricorn rules the universities, the medical systems, how things are set up in this world, the banking. These are all fundamental parts of Capricornian, like its ruling of its energy in our life. Aquarius is a lot more about humanity and technology and the collective energy of us all working together. Aquarius is about you are an amazing, unique individual that is a part of a collective energy. This is what Aquarius represents. So, Capricorn, over these last years, there has been so much for us to see around transformation of the Capricorn things that are in our life. So that's why we see a lot of the systems that aren't really working at the highest level anymore, going through massive shifts and massive changes. And we're going to another level of understanding again, especially with technology, because Aquarius is a ruler of technology. So this is why this year we've seen so much happen with AI, with all this, like, the ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence, the avatars, like all of this stuff. We're seeing massive, massive changes, huge shifts in understanding technology, how we work with technology, how we can all share information, which is so incredible because here I am looking at you and I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, and we're just in here having this like lovely conversation. Technology will be continuing to shape and shift in our lives. So what we're witnessing is Pluto, death and rebirth. That's what it's about. Always death and rebirth, death and rebirth. So Pluto is going to transform in a death and rebirth in Capricorn, which is old systems, essentially. And we're going to go through this new death and rebirth in terms of our new systems. And Aquarius is all about humanity and collectivity. And I think what we see too is a lot of these power structures, control, governments, things that are all over this world. Like, and how is it going to work best for everyone? That's Pluto in Aquarius, like how are we all going to use these amazing things to benefit everyone? This is what we're going through right now. And this year and next year is the peak of this energy. It's the pinnacle because this is huge shift that's happening. So individually, we are all being asked to really sit with who we are and be very clear about our authentic self, true to ourselves, true to our nature. When we are responsible, responsibility comes with real power, right? Like you
Mhm.
have power when you have responsibility. And we're all kind of going through this moment where we have to kind of face our truth, our real self, our authentic, and honor it and respect it. Respect our body, respect who we are, respect our energy, be responsible for it. Because then, as the collective, everybody contributes in this beautiful way by sharing their best self. And so when we look at, the stories in the sky and the planets and what they represent, well, there's all different stories. But what I'm seeing right now for the collective is really this big story about this shift of power where it used to be with these structures or authorities that sometimes have our interest in the best way, sometimes not, like sometimes what is the interest of some of these, is there more an end, there's a means there, or there's wanting power for certain reasons or, money and all these different things. What we're coming to understand, I think, as a collective through this shift with Pluto, and this is again astrology looking at the bigger picture, the mundane energy of what are we all moving through. It's that we're really coming to power with ourselves and being responsible and knowing what's best for us.
Yeah, I love that example of just how this applies to everybody right now.
Yeah.
And that it's about like individuality, but within the collective. So, not like individuality, like I'm just going to do whatever I want and forget the rest of you. It's like be your best self to help everyone else as well.
Oh, I love it. It's full goosebumps. Goosebumps are just truth bumps. That's what they really
That's
are.
right. That's
They
right.
just it's the resonation of truth. So we really like, oh, that was so beautiful. I love it.
I love it. Well, Leslie, this is human school. So it's your turn now. I have to ask, is there a lesson that you feel you've either learned recently or are currently learning right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a great question. This is something, it's funny you asked that at the end here, full circle, because we go back to, the anger story in my chart. I've gone through a lot of growth these last 12 years and a lot of, lessons and learning. And especially, I've gone through my own deep dive into me so that I can be this guide for people. Everyone does their own healing. Everyone is in charge of their own energy, their cells, their structures, everything. But it's my joy and, privilege and honor when I get to share everyone's journey, in every single reading, every single client, every single moment. But in my own day to day life, it's just really like a very simple thing. But recently, I have these neighbors, and I have
Not
and
the
it's both
neighbors.
on both sides. And oh my goodness, they are just pushing every button on this old anger story. And this old story that's gone on for a long time that I've learned a lot about and I've learned to handle it. Because I would tend sometimes if I was feeling so attacked or under some pressure, then I'd be really over aggressive. And that was not helpful or useful, like help to anybody, myself,
Yeah.
others. Sometimes in my life, I would be very under, and then I would like push everything down and then be like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then there would be other times where things would just explode on certain people or situations. And we have all these different emotions. Yeah, human school, we're all human. We have all these different emotions. But if we don't move through the energies of them, then that's when they get a hold of us or an attachment. And then we stay in that. And then that becomes a
Mhm.
mood, a habit, and, and we know how it goes. So this anger thing is something that I've worked on. And recently I have these two sets of neighbors on both sides. And they're just pushing all these buttons in these old ways that I can see myself go right into this pattern of, well, I need to go over there and say something. I need to look at this. I need to write a note. I need to like kind of
Don't
like
do it.
talk to. So I've been working on like, what is this about? And why does it have to be such a big thing? Like, how do I handle this in my day? Do I just say, "Hey, this is going on," or "Hey, you're doing this," or is it just something that I need to? So I think we all have different things, but something like this spills over into everything in my life. Like, if there's something like, for example, one of them plays heavy metal band practice. Like, I live in New York City, so, it's wild over here, but, like, so full band practice, full rehearsal, full bass, guitar, drums. I mean, so how am I solving this problem? Like, and I got really angry, and I had to really understand about where was this coming from and where does this come, and it took me back to a lot of patterns. Honestly, when, like my brother was a bully to me when I was little, and like, and this kind of energy that came up. And so from this silly, story of like, just, oh, it's the neighbors and they're, like jam session so loud. I'm like, wait a second. Like, so I've been working on how's the best way to handle this energy? What's, for me,
Yeah.
right? And like, how do I show up for myself and taking care of myself in this situation? And then, learning on how to interact sometimes with others, which is instead of a place that comes from like real anger.
Well, that's great. You're like, okay, this is clearly a trigger. If I'm getting this upset, there's more to the story. And you're just like digging into it, which,
Yeah,
by the way, everyone, that's what shadow work is. And
exactly.
now's the right time of year to do it. October,
Oh
October,
yeah.
November.
And we go deep into those deep, deep inner understandings, because essentially I love you said that too, shadow work, because we hear that so much. Shadow work, I'm working on my shadow. What? Yeah, it's really confronting some of these things. But ultimately, when we're in a state of peace and contentment, we're so creative, right? And we do so amazing things, and we inspire people. Just as humans, we're such incredible genius. You want to talk about AI? The human is the most intelligent thing
Yeah,
there could possibly ever be. All the functions in our body, all about this, all the things in
it's
our body,
amazing.
all, all the energy. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. So when we move through life in a peaceful and more content energy, we're better for ourselves, we're better for our health, and then we're better for everybody else, right? And so anger and different parts of us, yeah, you might just I could be like, "Oh, well, this really upset me," but I could see how it was carrying into other parts of my life or in my day. And so when we really examine those things, we have so much power to transform that energy. And then when we're in that more peace and contentment state, then we're just so creative. So one of the things with that was what I did was like my own little thing was like, when I think of something now, I'm just like, is this thought useful?
Yeah, is this anger totally like worthy and do I need to do something about it? Like, or is it not actually useful and worth my time?
Exactly. So
Because
this
some
is
things it's okay to be angry about.
absolutely. But is it useful? And if it is, or if it's important, then okay, well, let's work on that. Let's bring some attention to it. But if it's something that's like, then it can, and that's how things in our life can distract us a lot, right? Or can take a lot of our attention away by the things that we put, by how we connect with these thoughts that we have so many tens of thousands, 70,000 a day, like of like we're going through our life, and it's like, but what are we choosing to act on or to believe or to move through is like, is this useful for me? Because there's so much going on in the world right now, and we're all feeling so many different things coming up with world events, life events. People are going, the eclipses this weekend. We're going through big changes when we get into eclipse energy. People's lives can have dramatic shifts. So I encourage people just like, okay, I have this thought. Is this useful right now? Is this something that I need to put my attention on? And if so, then okay, otherwise it's not. It's like, yeah, like a tumbleweed in the desert storm. Like, let that tumbleweed blow on by.
I love it. Yep, just go. You're not needed.
You're just not needed right now. It's just time to move. Let it go through.
Also, I love that it's like you're just so human, and you put in such a human way of like, you sometimes you think, oh, well, I'm going to get a reading from someone, or I'm going to see this therapist or this or that. And you think everybody is perfect and they have everything figured out. And it's like, no, none of us have it figured out. That's why we're here.
And this is when we get to share, especially like conversations like these, and we get to share, then we get to learn and we get to support each other, and then we have so much more fun.
Exactly. Leslie, tell people where they can find you.
Okay, my website is same as my Instagram handle, which is Our Cosmic Day. So it's just OUR Cosmic, COSMIC Day, DAY.com. That's my website. And if anybody wants to have a reading, that's where you can book a session. And then I do have the same handle for my Instagram. I don't post a whole lot of stuff there, but you can also contact me through that way as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for letting me just go on and on and on about astrology. You know me, and I love to talk about it. I mean, this could be an 8-hour conversation.
Well, then maybe you'll have to come back, and then we can actually like break down planets and signs and houses and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I'd love that. And if anybody, if people ever want like to send in questions or ask things about things, I love to talk more about that too, to help people understand, kind of like really what is it about.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Please like, subscribe, share, and download the podcast. And again, you can find us at Human School Podcast on Instagram. I'd like to thank Dr. Zac Efron for the theme music. And I'd just like to make a general disclaimer that any of the institutions I work for, including Community Regional Medical Center, UCSF Fresno, and American Ambulance, have nothing to do with any of my thoughts or opinions. And so we'll kindly leave them out of this. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.